The smile was wrong. Not big, not bright. Wrong, like a bad copy of a memory. It sat on the dead man's mouth without being part of him. Too smooth, too clean, the color of candle ends and old teeth. Detective Pauline Shaw stood in the doorway of the boarded-up row house and felt the cold bite through her coat, through her skin, all the way to the place that keeps you human. It smelled like dust and pine cleaner and something sweet that didn't belong in a room where a body had forgotten how to be alive. Christmas had been arranged here. That was the verb that made the most sense. Arranged. Tinsel looped a crooked arch over the dining room entry, strings of lights, the fat glass kind she remembered from her grandmother's place, blinked over a paper mantel taped to a blank wall. A plastic tree tilted in the corner, ornaments like bruised apples hanging too low, as if gravity itself were grieving. In the center of it all sat the man, mid-40s, suit too big, hands folded, wedding ring turned inward, head tipped toward a plate set with nothing but a single wrapped peppermint in the middle, like a target. Shaw kept to the perimeter, skirting the clean ovals Patek's had marked with evidence tents. Footprints had been made and unmade here. The floor showed it, scuffed, then buffed. Whoever did this had thought of everything except how it feels when someone else walks into their picture and starts moving the pieces. "3 things," said the man beside her, the one they'd flown in because the case already felt like trouble. Julian Mercer's voice was barely above the hum of the building, but it threaded the room and stitched the parts together. Post-mortem manipulation, ritualized staging, and the smile. He didn't move closer. Mercer didn't crowd his scenes. He let them breathe and tell on themselves. Shaw preferred motion and noise, the normal mess of police work, but even she could see this. The mess had been ironed flat. The wax on the mouth had a finish that caught the light and let it go again. Not lipstick, not paint. It held shape like something poured and set. No drips, no smear. The edges lay too neat against the skin, as if the face had been edited. "Where's the blood?" Shaw asked. It wasn't a test. It was a frustration. "Not here," Mercer said, and then after a beat, he took what he needed somewhere else, or after. A carol clock on the wall burped the first 4 notes of Silent Night and gave up. A thin trail of cold crept under the window boards, stirring the garland on the sill. Someone had gone to a lot of effort to make the place look festive, without ever knowing what festive feels like. Shaw thought of her mother's table, burnt ham, too much laughter, the duct-tape chair everyone fought over because it was closest to the stove, and the contrast clicked inside her like a switch. The victim's eyes were open, fixed on the opposite chair, empty and waiting. The table was set for 2. 2 plates, 2 glasses, 2 knives laid like solemn twins. There was no fork for the second setting. I didn't know why that bothered her until Mercer said, "He doesn't trust himself with everything he wants." Meaning, he wants the whole meal, he permits only half. Shaw looked at him. Mercer wore a plain suit and a face that didn't advertise opinions. He had the posture of a man who'd spent years being mistaken for furniture and found that it improved his view of the room. He arrived with a slim leather notebook he hadn't opened yet. Shaw had expected a lecture from the famous behavioral analyst. Instead, she got quiet translations, English to English, horror to meaning. "Do you see the stockings?" Shaw asked, pointing at the paper mantle. 5 shapes, cut from glossy catalog pages, had been taped in a row. Mom, Dad, boy, girl, dog. Names were written in block letters with a careful hand that didn't belong to a child, the dog stocking, or a sticker of a bone. "I see them," Mercer said. "He doesn't." "You think he grew up like this?" "I think he grew up wanting this, and that's different." Mercer stepped closer to the victim's chair at last, eyes scanning the air above the plate before they dropped to his throat, then to his folded hands. Skin tone says he bled out lying down. Lividity suggests he was moved within an hour of death. Fingernails are clean. There's an adhesive line along the hairline. There. And there. Shaw crouched, careful. There it was. A faint, tacky shine at the edge of the man's temple, the kind you get from prosthetic glue. It made her think of masks, of theater, of someone practicing how to be a person and never quite getting the role right. "ID?" Mercer asked. "Driver's license in the coat pocket. Leonard Ames. Accountant. No priors, no local ties to this address. Landlord says the place is empty. Utilities show spikes starting 3 weeks ago. Someone prepping." How did he pick Ames? "Wrong place, wrong time," Shaw said. But even she didn't believe it. Mercer finally opened his notebook and wrote a single line. Shaw tried not to watch his pen. The room was telling on itself. The peppermint on the plate, the missing fork, the dog stocking, the wax. She felt the case climbing into her life and making space on her couch, the way the bad ones do. "What does the smile mean?" she asked. Mercer studied the dead man's face as if listening to a radio only he could hear. "He thinks joy can be added later," he said. "He believes happiness is a finish, not a feeling." "How many more are we looking at?" Shaw asked. Mercer closed the notebook, eyes on the empty chair across from Leonard Ames. "At least one. At most, he'll stop when the picture matches what he remembers." "And what's that?" Mercer looked at the stockings, at the dog with its paper bone, at the lights blinking their slow, stupid hope. A family. The kind no one ever had. End of Chapter 1.
Chapter 2. A Family of Strangers. They find the second room 2 days later, 6 blocks south, in a house with a no trespassing sign that looks new and a front step that doesn't. A neighbor called about music and a flicker at night. Pauline Shaw pushes the door and the smell greets her first, paraffin and lemon oil, like a church tried to have a birthday. The tableau waits in the parlor. 2 adults sit side by side on a floral love seat, shoes aligned heel to heel, hands posed over a children's book spread across both laps. Between them, on a little wooden stool, a department store mannequin leans in, head tilted to listen. Someone has drawn freckles on its plastic cheeks. The book is open to an illustration of a house with blue shutters. No words on the page. Just a picture of a place that promises safety if you don't look too closely at the windows. The adults are real. A woman in a green dress, early 30s, a man in a cardigan, mid-40s. Their mouths. Shaw forces her eyes to stay on procedure. The mouths are not theirs. Pale, poured, set. Each smile begins too far back and ends too early, as if joy were a thing you could glue on but didn't know where to place. The edges are clean. The throats are not. Whoever staged them washed the bodies afterward. There's the faint chlorine hush of it under the wax. Lights, Shaw says. Ruiz, the crime scene tech, angles a beam across the love seat. Mercer stays in the doorway for a long breath, listening to the room like it spoke a dialect only he studied. No rings on either, Shaw notes, but 2 cups on the end table, 2 plates stacked in the fireplace. Why hide dishes in a fireplace? Mercer answers without moving. because he thinks cleanup belongs there. Story logic over real logic. The children's book spine is cracked from new use. The title has been sanded off. The library card pocket is intact. That's what pulls Shaw in, the card. She peels it back with a gloved mail. The stamped dates make a tiny ladder. 1968, 1973, 1980. The last line is blank. Someone checked out a book that shouldn't exist anymore.
Different eras, Mercer says, finally stepping closer. Dress, wallpaper, lamp. None of it belongs to the same decade. He's collaging a childhood. Victims? Ruiz asks. Female is Denise Porter, Shaw says, reading from a folded printout. Local hairdresser. Missed a shift yesterday. Male's ID wallet says Craig Monroe. Card matches the face. Tool and die shop, Virginia side. No connection on paper. On paper, Mercer echoes. Gaze settling on the mannequin's mouth. Unpainted, open, waiting. There should be 3 chairs. There are, Shaw says. Love seat for the parents, stool for the kid. He shakes his head. At a reading, there's always a chair for the one who won't sit. You leave space to prove they're invited. Shaw checks the edges of the room, and there it is. A single, straight-back chair turned toward the corner, not the scene. Timeout. Or exile.
On the seat, a folded napkin with a candy-striped ribbon. Empty as a threat. Ruiz crouches. You want me to swab the wax? Don't, Mercer says, too fast. Photograph every angle first. He points to the meniscus around the smiles. These were handled with care. He practiced before he touched a face. How do you practice a mouth? Shaw asks. On fruit, Mercer says softly. On oranges, on peaches, on things that bruise and forgive. Shaw logs the thought and hates that it might be right. She studies the hands, fingertips smooth, cuticles neat. The woman's nails painted a color that looks like spring if you don't look at the body attached. There's adhesive shadow at both temples again, and a faint crescent along the hairline. Glue like the last one. But the eyes are untouched this time. They look glassy because eyes do that when you go, not because someone took them. What did he use to choose them? Shaw asks. Hairdresser and metalworker? Function, Mercer says. She makes people look like who they're trying to be. He makes parts fit. He's asking them for skills they can't lend now. Ruiz lifts the book's top corner. A thin rectangle slips and flutters under the couch. Shaw fishes it out. A glossy magazine clipping of a living room, the kind of mid-century perfection that leaves a film. The caption is missing. A dog lies at a man's feet in the picture, chin on paw, looking at everything like it's already history. Shaw flips the clipping. On the back, someone has traced a family with a ballpoint pen, pressing hard enough to dent the paper. The outline is wrong in small ways. The father's shoulders too square. The mother's waist too narrow. The child's hands too tiny to hold anything. A bone is drawn near the dog. Why the dog? Shaw murmurs. Because he thinks love is something you train. Because dogs come when you call and people didn't. They bag the clipping. They bag the candy ribbon. They leave the library card and leave the book open the way they found it, eyes and lenses pretending not to reread the same picture for a meaning that refuses to appear. Media? Ruiz asks. Not yet, Shaw says. We feed them crumbs, the kind that don't teach our man how to bake. At the door, Mercer pauses, hand on the frame. He's escalating. From a single fantasy to a scene for 3. He'll want 5 by Christmas. It's April. He doesn't know that, Mercer answers, looking back at the wax that passes for happiness. He's on his own calendar. End of chapter 2.
Chapter 3. The Missing Eyes.
They catch the third room by accident. A patrol cop stops for coffee on H Street and notices a flicker in the window of a shuttered photography studio, the kind that used to sell graduation smiles and family portraits in vinyl folders. It's April, and the display still says Holiday Specials. Shaw forces the bent lock with a shoulder. Dust lifts like old applause. Somewhere, a tape deck clicks. Then a choir of tiny children hums the first bar of Hark, the Herald Angels Sing, before the tape warps and slows to a syrupy crawl. The tableau is arranged where families used to stand. A single man sits on a stool in front of a paper backdrop of a winter park. Snow is printed, not fallen. There's a lamppost painted to look warm. He wears a thrifted suit jacket and a tie knotted wrong. His hands rest on his knees as if someone posed them and moved away. His mouth is bare, no wax this time. But his eyes are not his. Painted glass looks back at Shaw. Brushstrokes packed tight around the irises. Blue with a black ring that doesn't occur in life. The pupils are too perfect, too centered, like bullseyes. The socket edges are clean and numb under the light. The room smells of fixative and antiseptic, a sad museum trying very hard. Shaw says, lights. Ruiz spreads 2 stands and umbrellas. The flash throws the fake snow into cheap sparkle. Mercer stays just inside the door, eyes moving before his feet do. He scans the corners, the floor, the distance from stool to backdrop. He's experimenting with sequence, he says. Mouth, then eyes. He's assembling a face the way a child draws one, out of order. Victim ID? Ruiz asks, already dusting the counter. Shaw checks the wallet the patrol cop found folded under a rubber band in the man's jacket. Daniel Ricks, 38, works nights at a mailing center. Keyring matches the lockers there. She looks at the photo in his license and then at the painted glass. The eyes in the license are tired, a little amused. The ones in the head are not eyes. He washed him, Mercer says, tilting his head toward the basin in the back room where the water line is fresh and a towel hangs in a perfect square. Why a photo studio? Shaw asks. Because this is where people pretend and call it memory. He wants the room to agree with him. The prop box is open. Shaw picks through fake diplomas, felt caps, a candy cane prop with a broken hook. The calendar on the wall is stuck on December 1985. Someone circled the 24th with a red wax pencil and drew a star like a wound. On the counter, beside a Polaroid camera that's eaten too many batteries, lies a pair of doll eyes in a plastic tray. One brown, one green. The brown one is smudged with paint, like someone couldn't decide when to stop. Ruiz photographs them and then points to the backdrop supports. Prints, he says, not ours. Shaw moves to the stool. There's cape residue under each leg, faint and gummy. He fixed the distance. She murmurs,
He decided exactly how close we should feel. Mercer steps to the backdrop and runs a gloved finger along a crease. Glitter lodges in the latex. He's not improvising anymore, he says. He's storyboarding. Shaw's foot knocks something under the stool, a piece of newsprint folded to a neat square. She eases it free. It's a clipping from a local paper, yellowed at the edges, headline trimmed but legible enough. Child welfare probe widens.
The photo shows a brick group home with a chain-link fence and a wreath on the door that looks like it's trying to apologize. Date? Mercer asks without turning. Shaw says, December 1983. The lead paragraph has been underlined in jittery blue pen. Complaints of neglect, staff rotations, lost records. Someone drew a small dog near the margin and added a bone with 2 straight lines for smell. Ruiz looks up. Same dog again? Same need, Mercer says. Obedience that looks like love. Shaw bags the clipping. She checks Rick's hands. Clean nails. A faint adhesive shadow at the temples again, as if something was once affixed and then removed. He started to mask, then changed his mind, she says. Or he couldn't decide which face belonged here. Mouths go with rooms that talk. Eyes go with rooms that watch. Shaw glances at the taped-off distance, the printed snow, the lamppost that's never warmed a human thing. What did Ricks give him? Gaze, Mercer says. A man who looks at other people's mail for a living. He would know the weight of secrets by feel. Ruiz flips through a drawer and fishes out a Polaroid that didn't make the wall. It's a test shot. The stool, empty. The backdrop, uncreased. In the blank space where a person should be, someone has drawn a family in ballpoint. Father, mother, child, and a dog, so small they'd vanish in a real room. The hands are still too tiny, the shoulders too square. He's drawing the same people everywhere, Shaw says, more to herself than to the room. He's waiting for them to show up. They won't, Mercer says, and there's no comfort in it. He touches the Polaroid's edge with his glove. He'll build them instead. 3 scenes in a week? How long until 5? Mercer looks at the calendar, frozen on 1985, at the red star on the 24th. He's decorating. When he thinks the house is ready, he'll bring them home.
End of Chapter 3.
Chapter 4. The Waxmaker. The morgue smells like steel and oranges. The steel because it always does. The oranges because someone's burned a wick in a lab beaker and the air remembers. Dr. Liao lifts a sliver of the dead man's smile with tweezers and floats it over a flame. It softens without running, holds its edge like a well-trained secret. Not candle, she says. Not pure beeswax either. Dental modeling blend. Paraffin with a little carnauba for hardness. Tinted with carmine powder. Smoothed with heat. An alcohol lamp? Mercer asks. Or a hot spatula, Liao says. And this. She taps the glass vial. Trace of clove oil. Dentists use eugenol. Smells like Christmas if you don't know better. Christmas again, Shaw thinks. She writes the word and hates that it keeps writing her back. Liao angles the fragment to the light. See here? Microstriae from a number 7 carver. Whoever did this knows how to sculpt margins. That's not hobby work. Adhesive? Shaw asks. Prosaid, Liao says. Medical grade acrylic emulsion. Clear when dry,
tacky when warmed. Residue at the hairline, temples, corners of the mouth. He applied, removed, reapplied. Practiced. Mercer's gaze ticks to the wall clock, stuck at 10:24. Where do you buy Prosaid in D.C. in 1997? Film and Theater Supply, Liao says, or a hospital prosthetics lab if you know who to ask. Shaw closes her notebook. We'll start with retail. Paper first, people next. They hit 3 places before lunch. At Capital Stagecraft on U Street, a clerk with glitter in his beard shakes his head at the photos and chews the inside of his cheek. He says, Prosaid, yeah, but we're out of the big bottles. Someone came in last week and bought 4. Receipt? Shaw asks. Cash, he says. One of the flexible sculpting wax, too. We don't carry dental blends, so I sent him to Mid-Atlantic Dental on K Street. What did he look like? Mercer asks. The clerk's eyes take a lap around the store, trying to land somewhere safe. Average, he says. Polite. Asked if the glass eyes came in blue with a strong limbal ring. His face creases. Creepy specific. Did you have them? Shaw asks. Not human, he says. We sell taxidermy eyes next door. He didn't want animal. Next door smells like varnish and sawdust. The shopkeeper lays a tray of eyes on green felt, marbles with judgment. Hunters buy the brown ones, she says. Had a man ask for blue, painted dents. I told him that's not how real works. Cash? Shaw asks. Always. He says his hands shook until he touched the merchandise. Then they didn't. Mid-Atlantic Dental is a second-floor walk-up over a check-cashing place. The bell on the door coughs. Behind the counter, a woman with a Howard University sweatshirt and a pencil behind her ear scans their IDs, and then the list Shaw slides across. Modeling wax, carmine tint, eugenol oil, impression alginate, plaster bandage. You building mouths or ghosts? Both, Shaw says. Who's buying in bulk? The woman spins a ledger. Computer records are coming soon, the sign says. For now, ink rules the world. Clinics have accounts, hospitals, dental schools. Your list? Small purchases, cash. Same handwriting on 3 slips. Last name looks like Ward or Wardle. Hard to tell. Phone number, blank.
Description? Mercer asks. She thinks, then shrugs. Cap pulled low, she says. Quiet. Knew what he wanted. Asked if the carmine was honest. Never heard anyone say that about pigment. Shaw's pen pauses. Honest. As in, not orange, the woman says. Like a real mouth, not Halloween. Back on the sidewalk, the April sun is too honest. Shaw leans against the brick and watches people move past with their faces still attached. We have a name. Sort of, Ruiz says. We have a profession, Mercer says. Someone trained enough to carve margins and casual enough to buy from retail. Theater, dental, prosthetics, anastology. Places in the city where faces are made to match the lives that need them. Shaw ticks them off. Howard's Dental School, Georgetown, Walter Reed, VA Clinic, private maxillofacial clinics, stage shops, film crews, and foster homes. Mercer adds. Shaw looks at him. He's building a family, Mercer says. He'll go where strangers are given new names and told to fit. They split the list. Shaw takes institutions. Ruiz takes retail follow-ups.
Mercer asks for visitor logs and sign-in sheets, the paper trails nobody guards because they don't look like trails. At Georgetown's dental lab, a student remembers a man who didn't look like he belonged. He watched the plaster room from the hallway, didn't touch anything. I told him we were closed to the public. He smiled without his eyes and left. At the VA clinic, a receptionist flips her sign-in binder and points. No name, just a line with time in, time out, and a doodle of a small dog in the margin with a bone drawn like a promise. Security cameras? Shaw asks. Installed next month. Budget. Late, the three of them circle back at Shaw's desk. The board holds photos that refuse to know each other. Wax smiles, painted eyes, a children's book with no title, a red star on a December calendar, a name that might be Ward. Mercer studies the board and then the gap at its center, the space he's left on purpose. What are we missing? Shaw asks. The thing he's most proud of, Mercer says. Artists keep their firsts. First what? Ruiz asks. Mercer's gaze hooks on the lemon sheen in the wax in a print from the morgue. His first mouth. Not on a person, on something that bruises and forgives. He looks up. Find out who bought 20 pounds of oranges. End of chapter 4.
Chapter 5. Childhood Room. They catch the fourth scene on a Tuesday in a foreclosed townhome with a realtor lockbox and a back door that doesn't latch. Upstairs, the smell hits first. Powder and clove, Christmas baked into babyhood. Shaw steps into the small room and feels the wrongness rise like a rash. A boy's world has been arranged here. Rocket wallpaper on one wall, peeling at the seam. A baseball pennant tacked above a narrow bed. Plastic soldiers form a perfect line across the windowsill, each one facing inward, like witnesses who won't talk. On the dresser, a metronome ticks at 60 beats, training the room to keep time. The body lies on the bed, knees drawn up, chin tucked, a grown man dressed in flannel pajamas printed with trucks. Hair shaved close, fingernails clipped, cuticles pushed back. His eyelids are sealed with a thin wax fillet, neat as a surgeon's margin. The mouth is bare, lips gone, no wax smile added. The pillowcase shows a faint carmine blush where his face rested after death. Adult male, Ruiz says, voice small in the small space. 25 to 30. Christopher Hale, Shaw reads from a wallet found banded to his socks. Parcel courier, disappeared after a last delivery. Mercer stands in the doorway longer than usual, eyes moving like a slow scan over the furniture. He shrunk the father into a boy, he says, almost to the air. The costume makes the scale. He doesn't need a child. He needs the idea of one. Shaw takes it in, the bed made tight, the trucks marching on the fabric, the eyelids stitched shut with wax so the room won't be watched while it remembers. She hates the gentleness of it more than the gore he could have chosen. Clock the details, she says, mostly to anchor herself. Wax again. Prosade adhesive at the temples. Clove oil. No signs of struggle here. Look at the growth chart, Mercer says. On the doorframe, pencil ticks climb in an uneven ladder.
4 feet 2 inches, 4 feet 7 inches, 5 feet. Beside each line, carefully printed names: Elias, then E, then something crossed out, then a different surname entirely. The dates don't belong to one childhood: 1979, 1982, 1986. Someone copied height marks from different houses and stacked them, making a boy that never was. Composite, Mercer murmurs. He's sewing rooms together. Shaw photographs the ticks, then the wall opposite, where a list of rules is taped at eye level in purple mimeograph ink. Lights out 8 p.m. No shoes on bed. Smiles at the table. At the bottom, someone has doodled a small dog with a bone. 2 wavy lines for smell.
"Same dog," Ruiz says softly. "Same obedience," Mercer answers. Shaw checks the nightstand. Inside, a plastic bag holds a lemon and 2 oranges, each with a carved practice mouth, thin arcs of wax smoothing the cuts. The fruit is soft, collapsing under its own edits. Beneath the bag sits a produce crate. Sunny Way Citrus, 20 pounds, cash. A price stamped in red. "Oranges," Shaw says. He bought in bulk. "Receipt?" Ruiz asks. "Cash," Shaw says, echoing the crate. But the vendor remembers 20 pounds leaving with a man whose hands shook until he touched the fruit. Mercer opens a drawer and pauses. He lifts out a Polaroid that's been handled to fog, a thrifted frame with a family in it. Father, mother, boy, dog, too perfect by half. The backdrop is a living room that never existed, mid-century smile pasted over the seams. "Where'd he get the picture?" Ruiz asks. "Where he gets everything else," Mercer says. "Thrift stores, discard piles, things people loved once and then didn't." Shaw crouches at the bed. Tape residue gums each leg. "She's fixed the distance again," she says. "He's deciding how close we're allowed." A paper star hangs from a thumbtack above the bed, red wax pencil, the same as before. December 24 is scrawled in the center, the year left blank. A cassette player on the floor clicks as the tape flips. A woman's voice begins a bedtime story, warping in and out. "Good night, nobody. Good night, air." "Victim's role?" Ruiz asks. "Runner, a courier who knows routes, doors, times people aren't home. He's recruiting skills: hairdresser, metal worker, mail clerk, courier. He's borrowing functions to build a house that behaves." Shaw flips the pillow and finds another note, written in block letters that try to stay calm. "Don't wake the dog." Under it, a burn-scratched wooden figurine of a mutt. On the underside, carved with a pocket knife, "Good boy doesn't bite." "We need foster records," Shaw says. "Group homes, private placements, any Elias with changing last names. Start with the homes named in that 83 article, then widen. St. Bartholomew's, Carver House, any facility that used purple Memo rules. The handwriting on the growth chart compared to intake forms he copied from something he kept." Shaw straightens, the room pressing close. "You think his name is Elias?" Mercer says, "I think he tried on more names than shoes, and none of them opened when he knocked." "What's next?" Ruiz asks. Mercer's gaze lands on the empty corner where a desk should be. "He's missing a mother who tells him who he is." He'll go shopping for one. Where? Shaw asks. Where mothers are assigned. Social services. End of chapter 5.
Chapter 6. The One He Couldn't Save. The records floor of D.C. Family Services sits under street level, the air thick with toner and old gum. A fan turns like it's bored with everyone. Shaw signs the visitor log. Mercer writes nothing. He watches the clerk's hands, the way the pen digs a rut beside today. We need foster placements tied to Carver House and St. Bartholomew's, late 70s to mid-80s. Any child named Elias. Last names changed a lot. Mr. Kendall, archive, produces 4 gray boxes and a shrug that counts as sympathy. Purple mimeograph bleeds through the first file like bruised flowers. Rules sheets, lights out, no shoes on bed, smiles at the table. Photocopy whatever you want, just don't breathe on the staples. Shaw works. Mercer reads the margins. In 3 different intakes, a child's hand has drawn the same dog, a bone beside it with 2 wavering lines for smell. The handwriting for the name shifts. Elias Ward. Elias. Line through it. Eli. E-W-A-R. Blot. Composite child, Mercer says softly. Same boy wearing new labels. Shaw finds a Christmas newsletter from 1985, the kind offices make when they're trying to convince donors they're made of hope. A photo shows a tree in a linoleum cafeteria and staff in paper crowns. A woman at the center holds a foil star, dark hair pinned up, laugh lines that look earned. Marion Bell, assistant caseworker. Shaw circles the name. "Recognize her?" she asks. Mercer looks once and nods. Not yes, not no, more like that's where the gaze has been going. A note clipped to a stack of incident reports stops Shaw's hand. House fire, group home, 12/24. No fatalities, but 2 boys transferred after smoke inhalation. Names redacted. In the margin, someone has written, E hid a dog under the bed. Good boy doesn't bite. Shaw exhales. December 24th, the red star. Christmas is not a holiday to him, Mercer says. It's a deadline. Kendall leans over the counter. If you're looking for Miss Bell, he says, she left government in 91, runs a nonprofit, Ward Circle Family Advocacy. Funny name, right? Ward Circle, Shaw repeats. It's a traffic circle, he says, up by American University. She kept her cases after hours back then. People said she never stopped. They pull Bell's last caseload summary. The copies are streaked and overfed to the glass, but the shapes come through. Multiple homes for the same boy. Abbreviated visits. A note about a thrift store photograph discovered in a backpack. Family portrait. Unknown family. Boy refuses to part with image. Origin? Mercer asks. Donation bin behind a church, Shaw reads. Bell logged it. Tried to track the original. No luck. Mercer taps the line with a gloved finger. He found a mother in a picture, he says. She failed to find him one in life. He confused the 2.
Shaw dials the number on Bell's non-profit letterhead. A receptionist, the sound of children somewhere not far. The clack of a stapler living its best life. Miss Bell's in the field today, the receptionist says. House calls. Where? Shaw asks. Southwest, she says.
She's covering a last-minute home evaluation for a late adoption. She didn't say the address. Shaw leaves her number and hangs up, uneasy. Mercer has drifted to the copier, feeding a rules sheet through twice like he's watching it learn itself. We should find someone who knew Elias inside the system, he says. Kendall scratches his cheek. There's a maintenance guy used to mop this floor who grew up in placements, named Deshaun Latimer. Comes by on Fridays to pick up his check. Shaw calls the number Kendall finds on a memo. Latimer answers from a bus stop, voice wary until Shaw says the name Elias. Yeah, I knew an Eli. Skinny, big ears, carried a picture everywhere, said that was his family, and if anybody laughed, he'd go quiet for a week. Tell me about the picture, Shaw says. Mother in a sweater with snowflakes, father with a side part and a newspaper, kid with a dog that looked like it understood English. Latimer snorts, a memory breaking its own rule. Eli used to trace it so hard he dented the paper. Once Miss Bell told him to bring it to the Christmas party so we could make him a new frame. He thought that meant she'd put him in it. Did anything happen the night of the fire? Mercer asks, leaning toward the receiver like the voice could see him. Smoke came under the door. We all went to the cafeteria. Eli wouldn't, not until he'd gone back to get the picture. Miss Bell grabbed him herself. He screamed like she was stealing his face. A pause. There was this little kid, Joey, shadowed Eli everywhere. After the fire, they split us up. Eli lost his shadow. He wouldn't talk for a long time. Then he started smiling weird, practicing, in the window glass. Shaw closes her eyes. The wax meniscus, the missing fork, the red stars. Where would Eli go now? To the only person who ever tried to hold him still, Miss Bell. He loved her for it and hated her for not being magic. They hang up. The fan keeps moving nothing. Marion Bell, Shaw says. We need her route, her schedule, her clients. Mercer nods, but he's still with the boy who turned back into a burning room for a picture that didn't know his name. He's not recreating what happened, he says. He's editing it. He's escalating, Shaw adds. He's casting. He looks at the foil star in the 1985 newsletter. And he just picked his mother. End of chapter 6.
Chapter 7. The Face He Wants Most. Marion Bell did not know the picture still existed. She moved through Ward Circle the way she always did. Coffee in a paper cup, case files in a tote, hair pinned in a hurry that still looked deliberate. The nonprofit's door stuck at the top. She knew to lift, then push. A flyer curled on the glass. Family evaluations, call ahead. Below it, in chalk the rain hadn't found yet, someone had drawn a dog with a bone. 2 wavering lines for smell. Shaw saw it first. He's here, she said. They had come to warn her. The receptionist hesitated until Shaw flashed her badge, and Mercer said the nonprofit's name in a quiet that felt like permission. Marion listened without interrupting. Good listeners make investigators nervous. And when Shaw set the crime scene photos face down on the desk, her fingers spread protectively over the cardboard, as if photographs could bruise. I've had fixation cases, but this... She stopped. Do you think he's mine? Mercer studied her face and then the wall behind her.
where a photo of young staff in paper crowns hung on a pushpin. The woman in the center held a foil star. She had the same mouth as Marion. Time had only taught it restraint. "He's not yours," Mercer said. "He thinks he's yours." The receptionist rapped lightly on the door. "This came for you," she said, setting a padded envelope on the desk. "No return address." Marion slid a letter opener under the seam. Inside, a thrift store frame with a printed living room behind the glass. Father, mother, boy, dog. Marion's hands didn't move. Her eyes did. For a second, Shaw saw recognition slip and catch like a heel on ice. "That's you," Shaw said softly. Marion blinked. "A magazine piece," she said. "December '79. The paper did a neighborhood feature, a family for the holidays. They staged us in a friend's house because ours was small." She laughed once, a sound for something she didn't find funny now. "I donated boxes after the divorce. I didn't know the pictures traveled." There was a faint crescent at the corner of the glass, a smear that would be nothing if you hadn't been living inside wax. Adhesive shadow, clove memory. The frame smelled like a dentist's office, and a Christmas candle got wrong. "Do not go anywhere alone," Shaw said. "We'll assign a car." Marion shook her head. "I have an evaluation this afternoon, a late placement. If I arrive with police, it will poison the room." "Then let us sit outside and ruin the curb," Shaw said. "Please." Marion hesitated, then nodded. Ward Circle, 3 turns. Blue house with a lilac bush that refuses to die. When they left, Mercer didn't follow Shaw to the car. He cut across the circle to the public library with the clipping in his pocket. The periodicals desk smelled like dust and oranges, the brain's trick, not the air. A librarian in a sweater vest rolled her chair to the microfiche cabinet and fed the machine with competent hands. "Local Lifestyle, December 1979, she said, slipping the film through. The screen bloomed into columns and cheer. She spun the dial and stopped at a spread, a family for the holidays. The mother wore a sweater with snowflakes. The caption named her Marion Bell. Mercer printed the page. In the gutter of the spread, a craft store ad featured glass eyes for taxidermy and a coupon for clove oil, for potpourri and pomanders. He felt the shape of the mind that would consider a magazine, not just as images, but as a map. Back in the car, Shaw stared through the windshield at the chalk dog drying on Marion's glass. She said, "He's telling her he knows the language." Mercer said, "He's telling her he remembers, and he's asking her too." They tailed Marion's Corolla south, slow through lights, quick on the empty stretch along the river. Twice a panel van hovered in the next lane, dropped back, returned. No plate on the front, a dent like a thumbprint in the rear door. Shaw gave it her cop stare. The van turned off and was gone. Marion parked on a block of row houses with porches like stages. A tricycle lay upside down in a yard, wheels turning in the wind. She looked toward the street, saw the unmarked car, lifted one hand in thanks that didn't want to be seen. Then she went inside with her tote and her practiced smile. "Let me guess," Ruiz said on the radio. "You want me on the back alley?" "Take the alley," Shaw said. "Watch the yards. He likes corners." Mercer looked past the blue house, past the lilac bush that did, defiantly, refuse to die. Across the way, a windowless storefront wore a for lease sign and a thin skin of dust. In the glass, a gum-pink star had been drawn with a child's crayon and then rubbed out, the wax still in the scratches. "He's scouting," Mercer said. "He wants sight lines. He wants to place her in the frame." "Can we place him?" Shaw asked,
Mercer opened the magazine printout on his knee. The article's photo credit listed a name and a neighborhood. Photographer lived in Linden, Chevy Chase side. The stunt living room was there. "You think he'll take her to a house from a picture?" Shaw asked. "I think he'll make the picture fit a house," Mercer answered. "And if he can't find it, he'll build it." On the porch, Marion laughed at something no one else did. The sound carried, then fell. A white envelope had been tucked under her wiper blade while none of us had been looking. Inside, they knew, would be another picture, or a ribbon, or a note that said, "Don't wake the dog." The street breathed. The lilac shook. Somewhere a tape deck clicked, waiting for the next side. End of Chapter 7.
Chapter 8. Race Against the Tableaux. They lose her in 10 seconds that feel like a year. Marion steps off the porch with her tote. The lilac shivers. A white van glides from the alley and kisses her bumper. A man in a navy cap is suddenly there with a polite hand, helpful, sorry, so clumsy. Then the side door sighs and Marion is gone. Ruiz shouts from the backyard gate. Shaw sprints. The van fishtails around the corner, a candy cane ribbon flashing once from the antenna like a dare. Rubber and silence. Then the smell. Clove and lemon drifting. "Plate," Shaw barks. "Rear door dent. No plate," Ruiz says, breathless. "He knew we were here." "He wanted us here," Mercer says, staring at the strip of pavement where the clove hangs like memory. "He's ready." In Marion's parking spot, under the lilac, lies her tote. Not dropped, placed. Inside, a padded envelope, warm, like someone's hand just left it. Shaw slices it open. Out slides a magazine spread protected in plastic. "A Family for the Holidays, December 1979. The same living room they've been chasing." The ad column at the gutter is starred in red wax pencil. Linden Craft and Camera, 4820 Western Avenue. Underneath, a coupon for clove oil and glass eyes. "He circled the ad. He's mocking us," Ruiz says. "He's mapping," Mercer answers. He flips the page over. A ballpoint dog is drawn in the margin again, bone and 2 lines for smell. Beneath it, 3 words in block letters, "Bring them home." Shaw is already moving. "Linden Craft," she says into the radio. "Check status, vacant or open." Dispatch comes back. "Closed since '93, windows boarded. Property owner is a holding company." "Go," Shaw says. They cut north. Traffic barely exists. The city feels like it's holding its breath. Mercer spreads the magazine on his knee and stares at the starred address like it's a blueprint. He picked this ad because it sold both halves of his head. Craft for the room, camera for the memory. Linden, where the photographer lived. Where the stunt living room was built, Mercer says. If he couldn't find the exact house, he'll settle for a storefront that can pretend to be one. Linden Craft and Camera sits in a small strip like a missing tooth. For lease curls on the glass. Someone has scrubbed a pink crayon star off the window. Wax clings to the scratches. The air out here smells faintly of oranges. Shaw tests the door. It gives. Inside darkness, then a buzz as Ruiz finds the breaker. Strings of fat glass bulbs bloom along the ceiling. Christmas lights stapled to rafters like veins. The front floor has been cleared to bare boards.
Toward the back, a platform of plywood rears a thrift store rug, a paper fireplace taped to the wall, and, Shaw stops, an artificial tree with a single red star dangling from a tack. "Christmas morning," Ruiz whispers. "Don't touch anything," Shaw says, but the words feel late. The room is close, arranged. A table set for 5 sits on the platform, plates aligned, glasses rimless and bright, knives exact. 4 chairs. The 5th chair, the mother's chair, faces the tree. Clove oil ghosts the air. A wax meniscus shines on the rim of a teacup. On the floor beside the platform lies a produce crate. Sunny Way citrus, 20 pounds, cash. A lemon sleeps inside with a practiced mouth, cut and smoothed. "Where is she?" Shaw says into the emptiness. Mercer kneels at the platform's edge. Tape residue gums the legs. "He thicks the distance again," he says. "He wants us to stand exactly here and feel exactly this." Ruiz gestures to a back door marked "Employees Only." Shaw nods. He ghosts through, the door sighs. A moment later, his whisper crackles in their ears. "Basement, he built rooms." Shaw and Mercer follow the voice down a narrow stairwell where the wall ankles are painted with fake snow. The basement has no windows, only a hallway stitched together from shelving and hung sheets. On one wall, pencil marks climb, a growth chart copied over and over, names started and crossed out. At the end, a room glows. "She's here," Ruiz says. They stop at the threshold. Christmas morning. Finished. It isn't a living room, it's a photograph insisting it's a living room. Paper walls, a paper window with winter taped from the outside, a paper fireplace with a stocking for a dog. In the center, a chair beneath the tree. Marion sits, wrists bound with ribbon, mouth unsealed, eyes open and furious. A wax smile rests on a saucer at her elbow, like a tea bag someone will add when the water's right. "Marion," Shaw says, calm she builds with muscle, "we're here." Marion's gaze flicks past them, to the corner. Mercer follows it. He almost misses the empty stool. It's set at the edge of the room, facing away, time out, exile, the chair for one who won't sit. "He's in the walls," Mercer says low, watching the watching. A quiet scuff above us. The ceiling is only a drop grid and stapled garland. He's been moving on light feet. He's been in the room with us since they came in, but not in the room they can see. "Hold," Shaw breathes into her radio. "No loud moves. He's close." A tape deck clicks. The first bar of Silent Night tries to be brave, warps, dies. Mercer's eyes take in what the room means, instead of what it shows. He looks where the camera would stand, then beyond it, to the angle a builder would favor, to the vent cut too clean in the faux mantle. "He's behind the fireplace," Mercer says. Shaw nods once. Ruiz slides along the wall, cat slow, until his hand is a shadow near the paper bricks. The clove smell grows. From the vent, a whisper. Not words, breath learning how to be one. "Elias," Mercer says, to the air and the dark and the boy who chased a burning picture. Silence holds. "Show us where you sit," Mercer says softer, "or it won't be perfect." End of Chapter 8.
Chapter 9. Mercer at the door. The room holds its breath. The paper fireplace ticks as the tape glue cools. Marian's eyes stay on the faux mantle, not on Shaw, not on Ruiz, not on the ribbon around her wrists. She has learned in 100 homes that panic is noise a predator recognizes. From the vent cut into the paper bricks comes the faintest rasp, the friction of skin near metal. Elias, Mercer says low, "You left a chair for the one who never sits. That's where you're hiding. That means the scene isn't finished." A pause, then a whisper like a match struck and blown out. "You stand wrong." Mercer doesn't look at Shaw or Ruiz. He moves instead to the mark the room insists upon, the scuffed rectangle where the camera would live, then steps past it. Deliberately wrong again. He says, "You fixed the distance, but you didn't fix us." The clove grows stronger, warmed by a hand behind the wall. Ruiz's palm hovers an inch from the paper brick seam. Shaw angles left, sight line to Marian, sight line to the door, sight line to the shadow behind the hearth. "You brought them home," Mercer continues, voice almost conversational. "The hairdresser, the metalworker, the mail clerk, the courier, all the people you needed to build a house. But your mother's chair is still empty." A breath that might be a laugh skates through the vent. The paper window flutters, air moving where it shouldn't. A strip of red star ribbon trembles over the artificial tree. Marian's jaw tightens once, then stills. "Elias," Shaw says, tone flat as a level, "this ends with you walking out or us tearing down your wall. Either way, we see you." Silence. Then softly, "Don't wake the dog." Mercer lets the sentence sit between them, a rule read aloud at last. "Good boy doesn't bite," he says, echoing the carving they found. "You hid a dog under a bed once. You thought if you kept it quiet, it could live in the picture." A whisper of movement behind the bricks. Prosade smells like a dentist office when fear heats it. "I can fix it," the voice says, child flat. "I can make it honest." "You can't fix time," Mercer says, "but you can choose the last picture." Shaw's eyes flick to him. The plan is unspoken and fast. Keep him talking, keep him seated in his certainty.
"You know what's wrong?" Mercer asks, stepping toward the empty stool at the edge of the room. "The father. He's always wrong in your drawings. Shoulders too square. Sit him right, and the room will be still." He places a hand on the stool's back, but doesn't sit. The stool faces away from the tree, away from Marian, toward the corner where a child would be sent to think about what he's broken. "You left this for yourself," Mercer says. "You never get to be in your scenes. That's why they collapse." Behind the mantel, paper crinkles. Something brushes the vent. A single blue-painted eye, glass, not human, appears for the thinnest instant and is gone. Ruiz doesn't reach. Shaw's hand tightens on the radio, then loosens. "Elias," Mercer says, softer, "if you don't sit, she can't be your mother. You'll have to keep taking mouths and eyes until there's no room left for a face." A breath. "Mothers make you look like you," the voice says. They tell you, and then it's true." "And then it's true," Mercer agrees. but only if you let her see you. He turns the stool slowly so it faces the tree and the chair where Marian sits. He does not sit down. He leaves a space shaped like a choice. The tape deck, as if on a timer only one person knows, clicks to life and gives them the first 4 notes of Silent Night. The melody quavers, fails, starts again. A metronome somewhere in the warren behind the wall resumes its tick at 60. A room learning how to keep time. Marian, Mercer says, eyes still on the mantel. Tell him what mothers do. She doesn't hesitate. We tell you who you already are, and we stay when you don't believe us. Something like a sob hits the paper from the other side. The garland shakes. A seam in the brick peels a finger's width. Now, Shaw whispers, but Mercer lifts a hand without looking. Not yet. You wanted 5 by Christmas. You always wanted 5. 2 parents, 1 child, a dog, and the boy who won't sit. But you can't count yourself and hide at the same time. The vent darkens. The smell of cloves swells. A shadow gathers and resolves at the edge of the hearth as a panel hinged in clever cheapness eases open. He crawls out like a stagehand, not a monster. Cap low, sleeves clean, hands that shake until they touch the set and then go still. His face is mostly his, except for the faint shine along the cheekbones and temples where adhesive has kissed skin. In his right hand he holds a small saucer on which rests a half-formed wax smile, the curve too careful, the color too honest. He doesn't look at Shaw. He doesn't look at Ruiz. He looks at the stool. I stand wrong, he says, and sets the saucer on the mantel like a teacup beside a fireplace that will never warm anything. He breathes in, out, and turns toward the empty seat. Elias, Mercer says, letting his name be the last soft thing in the room. Show us where you sit. Elias Ward lowers himself onto the stool. Now, Mercer says. End of chapter 9.
Chapter 10. The Smile Falls.
Now, Mercer says. Shaw moves first, 2 quick steps, muzzle steady, body a door that won't open. Ruiz ghosts the hearth panel and pins it with his shoulders so the dark behind the paper bricks can't swallow a man back up. Marian doesn't flinch. She has learned to hold still while other people make choices. Elias Ward sits on the stool exactly where the room told him not to. Hands open, palms up. He looks smaller in the chair that faces the tree, like a boy waiting for instructions that never arrive. Don't wake the dog, he whispers, as if quiet could undo what loud has done. Nobody's waking him, Shaw says. Keep your hands where they are, Elias. His eyes skip past her to the saucer on the mantel, to the half-formed smile cooling there. The clove smell fattens the air. He is trying to decide whether to finish the scene or let it live with its missing piece. It isn't perfect, he says, almost pleading with the room. She has to tell me. Then let her see you, Mercer answers. All of you. Elias's gaze tugs toward Marian, then away. The faint shine along his cheekbones catches the light. There and at the temples, the whisper of adhesive where skin meets something that wants to be skin. You've been wearing parts, Mercer says, gentle as a nudge, practicing your own face. That's why it never fits. Elias's fingers rise as if of their own accord and hover at his jaw. He doesn't touch. He can't. Habit and hunger argue in his hands. Take it off, Mercer says. Mothers recognize you without it. The metronome hidden somewhere ticks on. Marian finds the breath she needs and uses it. Elias, she says, steady. I can only help if I can see you. His fingertips find an edge, acrylic tack gives. A line lifts at the cheek and peels. The room holds its breath with him. He draws the thin crescent of sculpted cheek down and away, a fragile shore of wax and pigment that looks in the hand like nothing much at all. Underneath is just a face, sallow from basement hair, tired from trying to keep a picture still, ordinary, which is the one thing his story would not allow. It's wrong, he says, almost hurt. It's small. It's yours, Mercer says. Ruiz closes the space and cuffs him without drama. He doesn't fight. When the first cuff clicks, Elias makes a sound like a drawer shutting, not pain, finality. Ruiz clears the fake hearth and kicks the latch free. Behind the paper bricks, the hiding place resolves, a crawl of plywood, a tape deck, the metronome, a nest of tools, number 7 carver, prose aid, clove, carmine, glass eyes in a tray like marbles with opinions. Marian exhales only when Ruiz, his hands lift the ribbon from her wrists. She doesn't stand. She doesn't touch Elias. She looks at him as if learning a difficult word. You went back for a picture, she says softly, not a question. And it burned. Elias's eyes find the paper mantle where a stocking shaped like a dog hangs beside 5 others. 2 wavy lines, smell, float above the drawn bone. He didn't bite, he says, child flat. He didn't make a sound. We heard you, Marian said. We just couldn't be magic. For a moment, something unclenches in the room. The tape on the paper window gives. The red star spins on its tack. The tableau, deprived of the belief that built it, sags like a stage after curtain. Shaw reads him his rights. He blinks at them as at a language he knows but never spoke. When she guides him up, his shoulder brushes the mantle. The saucer tips. The half-formed smile slides and lands face up on the floor. Unbroken, absurdly careful. They lead him upstairs through the empty store where strings of Christmas bulbs buzz like insects. On the plywood platform, the 5th chair, the mother's, waits, turned toward a paper hearth that never warmed anything. Elias stops once and looks long at that chair, as if asking it a last question. It says nothing back. Outside, April air tastes like oranges only because their heads are full of them. An unmarked car idles at the curb. Reporters haven't found them yet. The city doesn't know that one of its basements just coughed up a bad dream. Why 5? Ruiz asks, almost to himself, as he bags the metronome and the carver and the clove. 2 parents, Mercer says. 1 child, a dog, and the boy who wouldn't sit. Which boy is that? Ruiz asks. Mercer looks at the open doorway to the basement where paper snow still clings to the ankles of the wall. He's the one who builds the room, he says. At the station, Elias signs his name with careful block letters that try not to shake. Elias Ward. He watches the pen like it might fix him. When they take his photograph, he asks a favor no one expects. Don't make me smile, he says. They don't. After, Shaw walks Marian to her car. Lilac bush by the nonprofit nods its small defiance. In the back seat sits the thrift store frame inside an evidence bag. Red wax pencil has circled the ad that mapped a life. You kept other people's pictures, Shaw says. I thought I was helping, Marian answers. He mistook it for a promise. In Mercer's office later, the board is cleaner than it has any right to be. Smiles off mouths, eyes back where they belong. A produce crate with its price stamped in red. A dog carved from a scrap of wood, underside scratched. Good boy, doesn't bite.
Mercer stands until the silence learns his shape. The room that wanted a family has none left to want. He peels a note from the corner of the board, "Bring them home," and lets the tape surrender. The smile was wrong, he thinks again. Not because it was wax, because it was added after. End of chapter 10 and end of story. We hope you enjoyed it. Like and subscribe for more murder mysteries and thrillers. See you back soon.